Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video, and today I want to talk for a little bit about the 2024 NBA All-Star rosters. We got the starters last week, the reserves last night, and we finally got the full picture. I also did a live stream during the reserve announcement where I talked a lot about my thoughts, but I figured I'd go ahead and make a video anyways to make it more succinct, and now that I've thought about it for a few more hours, talk about some of the biggest snubs who made it and who didn't, and maybe who some of the injury replacements could be, because we already know in the Eastern Conference there are two guys that are going to have to be replaced, and it feels like more guys will probably pop up along the way, just deciding to sit out for rest as their teams head down the stretch run of the season. But for right now, leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos, and let's talk about some All-Star snubs. First, let's go ahead and go over the rosters themselves. The starters, if you missed them in the West, are Luka, KD, Shai, LeBron, and Jokic, and the East, it's Giannis, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Haliburton, Damian Lillard, and Jayson Tatum. As for the Eastern Conference reserves, I think they got pretty much all my picks on here. You got Bam Adebayo, who's doing great things for the Heat right now, career year from him, playing some high-level defense. Paolo Banchero, who's also been great defensively, scoring over 20 points per game for the Magic, who are taking a leap in his second season. Jaylen Brown, who's a lot of nights been the Celtics' second-best player alongside Jayson Tatum, high-level scorer, playing high-level defense, just been a big contributor for the best team in the NBA so far. Jalen Brunson, having a career year right now, shooting the lights out. He actually just accepted a bid to the three-point contest as well. Super cool for Jalen Brunson. Probably should have been on here last year. Goes ahead and makes it now. Tyrese Maxey bursting onto the scene, putting up around 25, 26 points per game. Just at a 51-point game tonight as I'm recording this video. He's been amazing. Huge help to Joel Embiid over there in Philly. Donovan Mitchell playing some of the best basketball of his career in the absence of some of his co-stars in Cleveland. And Julius Randle, who after a horrific start to the season has turned things around in a big way and is playing really well, or at least was before the recent shoulder injury that's probably going to keep him out beyond this All-Star break. As for the Western Conference, you've got Devin Booker off the bench, who just won Player of the Month, having a fantastic season for Phoenix as they're rising up the standings. You've got Steph Curry. Warriors aren't playing too well, but Steph is still doing ridiculous things over there. Anthony Davis playing at a depoy level, giving them around 25 points per game. Ant has oftentimes been the best player on the best team in the Western Conference so far, really continuing his rise towards superstardom. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, the Clippers' wing duo, who are both playing really well. Kawhi in particular is playing like one of the best players in the world right now while the Clippers are on fire. And lastly, you've got Karl-Anthony Towns, who's putting up right around 50, 40, 90 splits, second leading scorer on the Timberwolves, and is playing some of the best defense of his entire career. If you ask me, I think they did a pretty good job. There's not one guy on either of these teams that I think is not having an all-star caliber season. Everybody here is worthy of being on this list. Now, that doesn't mean I would have done things a little bit differently, because there were some guys that I had differently on my all-star picks, which I made a couple of days ago, than the NBA went with as their picks. Starting off in the Western Conference, the list that they have here is the exact same as mine, except for Karl-Anthony Towns. Again, it's not that I don't think he's deserving, he just wasn't my pick. My pick in that spot was De'Aaron Fox, and as you probably noticed looking at this list, the Sacramento Kings, despite being the 5th seed in the Western Conference, don't get a single All-Star, and Fox and Sabonis are playing the best basketball of both of their careers. They've both been absolutely phenomenal, and not having either of them feels kind of criminal. I understand not having both of them. It's hard with the amount of talent in the Western Conference right now, but neither one of them feels crazy. Like, Sabonis currently is putting up 20 points, 13 boards, and 8 assists. He's first in double-doubles this season, second in triple-doubles, the highest rebounder in the league, and he's 6th in assists across the entire NBA for, again, a Kings team that is the 5th seed in the Western Conference. But he doesn't make the All-Star game. This is the best he's ever played. De'Aaron Fox is putting up a career high in points, shooting really well from 3. He's still one of the most clutch players in the league, playmaking, playing high-level defense. Like, he's doing everything as well. The fact that neither of them makes it kind of blows my mind, and that's the main sentiment across NBA Twitter, is that the Kings probably should have got somebody. So I probably would have went Fox or Sabonis over Cat. Again, I'm not saying he's not an All-Star level player. I just think the Kings were deserving of somebody. Beyond those two guys, you've got like Lauri Markkanen, doesn't end up making it despite being one of the most efficient high-volume scorers in the league for a Jazz team that has been surging as of late and is currently in the play-in picture. Alperen Sengun having a monster season, maybe the MIP of the league, also doesn't make it. I didn't think he was going to, just because, again, there's a lot of competition, but it does suck. It would have been nice to see a young guy like Sengun get some of that recognition. Rudy Gobert is even someone else that we could talk about making this list over some other guys as the depoy right now, the anchor of the best defense in the league right now. And really, they've been a historic defense this season compared to the league average. They're blowing most teams out of the water. You'll also probably notice no Pelicans, who have been one of the better teams in the West so far this season. I don't blame them for not having any Pelicans. Like Ingram, Zion, and CJ are all having amazing seasons, but their numbers kind of even each other out. There's not a single one of them that's like blowing you away in terms of statistics. They just play really good team basketball overall, so I'm not surprised. A lot of people were upset that there was no Wemby. It's just hard to give it to a guy whose team is less than 10 wins right now, even if he's been really good. He's also sitting out a lot of games playing with a minutes restriction. The second they fully unleash Wemby, he's going to be an all-star. I would be surprised if he wasn't one next season, but for the moment, I completely understand. And then, as a Thunder fan, no Chet Holmgren, no Jalen Williams. I'm not surprised by that again. The West is just really stacked. But it would have been nice, for one of them to make it. I wasn't expecting it again. I don't think they deserved it over some of these other guys. And hopefully next year, one or both of them end up making their way onto this team, in my biased opinion. But yeah, those are some of the snubs. It probably would have been even crazier if John Morant was healthy. Kyrie missed a lot of time. He could have been in these conversations. Jamal Murray is playing out of his absolute mind this season. And it doesn't matter because the West is just so stacked. This is one of the toughest conferences to pick an all-star in that I've really ever seen. When I was making my list, it was really difficult because you've got to leave off some of these guys that are playing ridiculous basketball so far. This is one of those years where I really wish they had 15 all-star spots instead of 12. I've been lobbying for that for a little while now. I don't know if they're ever going to make that change, but hey, maybe the NBA will consider it. Over in the Eastern Conference, they got it pretty much exactly right. This is pretty much exactly how I would have done it. My one difference when I made my picks is that I didn't even have Damian Lillard on my team, never mind as a starter. I understand why he's on here. He's really popular, and he's still having a fine season. It just hasn't been the Damian Lillard of typical, and he's been not playing as well as some of these other guards. So I would have put Donovan Mitchell or Jalen Brunson into the starting lineup, and I probably would have had Trae Young on this roster. Trae Young not making it feels kind of ridiculous. I know the Hawks haven't been very good this season. I know they're probably going to blow things up coming up here soon, but Trae Young individually, which is the crux of the All-Star game, is putting up some of the most unbelievable numbers for a player that isn't going to make the game that I've ever seen. Trae is currently giving the Hawks 27 points a night, 11 dimes, shooting 37% from deep. In fact, Trae is only the second player to not be named to an all-star roster while giving you 25 points per game, 10 assists per game, and shooting 55% true shooting percentage. The only other player to not be named an all-star while doing all that was Trae Young last year. So this is the second year in a row where he's putting up ridiculous statistics, but isn't getting the recognition that he probably deserves. If we're talking about the best seasons from a guard in the Eastern Conference right now, Trae Young is firmly in that conversation. He's doing ridiculous stuff. It just seems like he doesn't really ever get picked in these scenarios. He's even defending way better than he typically does. He's not an all-defensive player by any means, but he's trying really hard on that end. He's trying to do his best to make his game more well-rounded, and it just didn't result in really any recognition this season. If we want to talk about individually the best guard seasons in the East right now, I understand his team's not very good, but it doesn't have a lot of help. If we're just talking season for season amongst Eastern Conference guards, there's a better argument for Trae Young being a starter than there is for him not being on the roster whatsoever. So I'm kind of disappointed by that. Now, he probably will still end up making the roster. We're going to need 2 injury replacements for Joel Embiid and Julius Randle. Embiid, it was announced today, has a meniscus injury, so no way he's going to be playing in an All-Star game. And Julius Randle, his shoulder popped out last night, so he probably won't be playing in this game either. So Trae is going to step in for one of those guys. It's very deserved. He will absolutely get the nod. But in my opinion, it just sucks that it even had to come this far. He should have been on the team in the first place. The question is, who's going to be the other injury replacement? And I would imagine it's probably Scottie Barnes. He's one of the top players that people mentioned as a big snub for this list. He's having a monster season, right around 20 points per game, rebounding really well, playmaking really well. He's a Swiss Army knife point forward, defending well, clutch, way more efficient than he's been in the past. He is the Raptors' new franchise player. He's been their best player all season. And if you ask me, he is very deserving of getting recognized as one of the All-Stars if they do come looking for an injury replacement. I would imagine he probably gets that second nod, which would be great. Shout out to Scottie. Some other guys that I think could get a little bit of consideration include Derek White. I know a lot of people in the media were campaigning for him to be an all-star. High-level defense. A lot of people would argue the Celtics' second most impactful player. It would be cool to see him grab a spot, although I think Scottie and Trae Young probably will get the nod ahead of him. Porzingis is worthy of consideration, although he's missed a high number of games. Jared Allen, another guy that I would love to see as an all-star, playing at a D-point level over this recent stretch with Mobley out of the lineup, has been huge for the Cavaliers, maintaining momentum despite both Mobley and Garland missing a lot of time. Jimmy Butler could be in consideration, but he's missed a lot of games. Siakam also could be in consideration, but I think I give it to Scottie over him as the former Raptor. And yeah, I think those are most of the guys that I'll talk about as snubs. There's some other players in the Eastern Conference and a couple guys more that you can mention in the Western Conference. But those are my main guys. Overall, I think they did a pretty good job with these rosters. As I've already mentioned, a few ways that I would change things. I still think it's crazy the Kings didn't get a single representative, that Trae Young isn't on the roster. Maybe some of these things will change with injury replacements, but for the moment, these are our 2024 All-Stars. Let me know down below in the comments who your biggest snub was, who are you most excited to see in the All-Star game, what player combinations are you excited to see on the court, and do you think they should expand the All-Star rosters like I do? I think they should move it to 15 players. Do you think they should move it, keep it at 12, just have to make the hard cuts because there are them every single year, although I think this season was especially difficult. A lot of great players that don't end up making the list. I appreciate y'all watching. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.